Hey everyone, Dockwell here. In today's video, we're going to be going over the top 5 winners and losers from patch 7.38. And we're going to start with the losers and then get into the winners. And I'm sure you already know some of these, but you might be a little bit surprised at some of the other things I'm going to say. So let's just get into the top 5 losers. So before I get into number 5 for losers, I'm just going to give an honorary mention to the guy that now patches the heroes when IceFrog is doing something else, because whoever did it for like 2 years or so when IceFrog was working on the other game, and now this guy, I guess, must be back or something, because this guy, whoever it is, or whatever the team is, maybe it's an AI, I don't know, they keep buffing a hero and then nerfing a hero. The same hero that doesn't even really need to be touched, or needs to be buffed, or needs to be nerfed, and they just do these weird things that make no sense. The perfect example is Jug. Why is this hero getting nerfed? It makes absolutely no sense. Stop nerfing heroes that are bad. Like, oh, well, we want to buff it here, so we're going to nerf it. No, don't do that. Just buff the hero. Just buff him. Like, why? Why do we do this? And it happened time after time after time in this patch. It makes me so mad. Just buff the hero, dude. It's like cowardice. It's like, stop being so scared of buffing a hero that you have to nerf him too. And then, because whoever's, like, doing this patch stuff, they don't even know anything about Dota, I guess. So it ends up being that they're trying to buff the hero, and then they end up nerfing it more because the small nerf that they thought was small was actually huge, and it makes the hero way worse. So it pisses me off that they do that kind of stuff. They did the same thing to Ember, where they like nerf part of it and then buff another part of it. It's just like, dude, I get kind of what the idea is in some way, where you want to make one thing about the hero that was really strong worse, and then something that was really bad better. And I think Alchemist is a good example of that, where you nerf some of the other things about the hero, but then you make his passive better because it's been so, like, forgotten and pointless. Or SF is another good example, where you nerf these other things that are OP, and then you buff the skill that nobody was even skilling. That makes sense in those very rare circumstances. But for the most part, just stop this. Just stop doing this where you buff and nerf the same hero in a patch. I don't understand it. Get rid of this. Whoever's doing this, the team, the AI, change it, because this is just absurd. Then coming in at number 5, we have Spectre, and this hero was changed to Universal. That's the big change of the hero, and that doesn't really do a lot. Like, you're still probably going to have the same build, but overall, just what it wants to do is not as effective as before. So the pick rate has kind of fallen down, just crashed down to almost nothing. The win rate hasn't dropped as much, but it has dropped a few percentage points. I just think overall the hero is not nearly as good as it once was. I think you could still do the same similar kind of build. You could still kind of get to the late game and still be a beast, but this hero was definitely hurt a lot this patch, because last patch it was probably the best carry. I mean, it was just OP. It was insane. If you got past 30 minutes, you got to 4 items, you just won the game pretty much. You just couldn't show on the map against this hero, and that same kind of thing can be true this patch. It's not like completely gutted, but it's not nearly as good as it once was. I was actually considering putting PA or Bristle in this spot, but when I looked at the pro games, they are still getting picked, and they're still kind of effective. So even though their win rates and pick rates have dropped off a little bit, I would say I was considering putting them here, but I think because pros are still picking them, it's not, you know, the pub stats don't always show the full story. So those heroes are still decent and haven't been impacted, I think, as much as Spectre has. Then coming in at number 4, we have Lich, and this hero was basically the best support last patch, and it wasn't something that I was personally annoyed with. Like, I didn't mind Lich being very good, but a lot of people didn't like this hero being as OP as it was, so it makes sense that it was nerfed, and it kind of was gutted. Like, it just doesn't do as much as it used to. It's basically, the numbers overall are just not nearly as good. It just doesn't feel OP, so the win rate and pick rate have kind of just fallen off a cliff with this hero. That's really all there is to say. There's nothing special, crazy, new, or different about the hero that makes it like a different hero overall. It's just that the numbers are way worse, and other heroes are way better now in the support position. So that's kind of the long and short of Lich. Then at number 3, we have Kez, and honestly, I was considering putting Kez at the top spot just because this hero was already nerfed a good bit. Like, it was very OP after it first came out, and it got buffed a few times in the first few weeks or whatever, and then it just was like dominating pubs and just really good. Then it got nerfed a little bit, and it was just kind of at this medium spot. Like, it was still pickable. I think it was still good. If you knew what you were doing, you could dominate games, but it wasn't, like, picked every game. It wasn't an insane hero. And then they kind of changed a lot about it in this past patch, and I think nerfed it into oblivion. Like, if you look at the pick rate and win rate, it's just not good now. And I just think it wasn't really deserved. Like, the next 2 heroes, it was deserved in some way, and they got what they deserved. But Kez, it felt weird. So that's almost why I wanted to put it at number 1, because I'm like, it didn't need this, and now it's just dead. And this was like an interesting, good hero. So I don't know why they did this to the hero, because it's your new hero. You kind of want to showcase it. I mean, I guess if you're going to put it in like pro matches in captain's mode, then you don't want it to be OP, but still, like, I don't know. It's just a little bit awkward that they did this to Kez. I kind of feel bad because it is such an interesting hero, and it already wasn't getting picked a ton. Like, I didn't see it in pubs that much compared to obviously when it was released. Then at number 2, we have Bloodseeker, and this is a sad day for Bloodseeker. I wasn't a huge Bloodseeker player in this patch. I just felt like, I'm going to pick Spectre instead of just learning the new Bloodseeker. But honestly, it was just really OP. It was insane. And they did the thing, which makes me mad, that I wish they didn't do, which is they changed how the hero works in kind of its base, like, core functionality. Yes, they kind of just switched things up. So they switched the Ags and the Shard, and it still has some of the same stuff. But I don't really like that, because even though it seems like to maybe, you know, the outside observer or the person that doesn't really play the game very much, like it does the same thing, it really doesn't do the same thing anymore. So they switched up the abilities and drastically changed the hero, and now it might be dead and it might never come back. So that's the problem. I wish they would have just kept it doing what it did and then just nerfed the numbers so that we have this cool, unique style of hero, but it's just not nearly as good as it once was. That's what I hope to happen in this patch. And of course, they didn't do that. They just changed the abilities once again, and now who knows if Bloodseeker will ever come back into the meta in the next few years. But anyway, that's just my rant on Bloodseeker. Then lastly, for biggest loser, we have Lina, and this hero had the biggest win rate drop in the patch, and that makes sense. It's also, it was well deserved to get nerfed like that. When I read the patch originally, I thought, this is obviously a decent nerf to Lina, but I wasn't sure if it was going to disappear completely. But it was one of those things that the reason why it was so broken and annoying is the same reason that a small number nerf like that, or a decent number nerf, ended up completely destroying the hero, because basically the reason it was so annoying is because it just deleted heroes. The numbers were too strong, and then when you kind of make the numbers lower and they don't just one-shot heroes, like you can't just run around with the Ags and delete a hero as soon as you see them, now it kind of means like, okay, well then, is this build really even viable? And it's kind of not anymore. So now that it's not viable, now it just completely destroys what the hero even does, and you have to go back to being a right-click Lina, and it kind of has to find its spot again. So I think Lina is still, I guess, pickable if you know what you're doing in the mid lane. Like, you can still go for the right-click build, but even now, also Gleipnir is gone, so that also makes the hero even worse, so you can't transition into the Gleipnir build anymore either. So it's like, it's really awkward, really weird. You don't really like the hero in any capacity now. That's why it fell off a cliff with win rate and with pick rate. So Lina's definitely the biggest loser of the patch. I think people probably are happy about that. And yeah, I like Lina. I love the hero. It's probably one of my favorite mid heroes, but it makes sense that it was nerfed, and it is definitely deserving. Now jumping into the top 5 winners, at number 5 we have Jakiro, and this is basically the best support of the patch. They pretty much gave him Liquid Fire and Liquid Frost at the same time now. You just get both of those, and what people are picking for the most part is the Icebreaker facet, because now you get an upgraded Ice Path, which does like 2 stuns, which is kind of insane. So you get buffs from your like double attack with Fire and Frost. You can go for the facet, the Twin Terror, but it just isn't worth it. Like, you don't really need that as a support. You'd rather just get this extra stun with Icebreaker, with the Ice Path. It's just way better for what the hero wants to do. So now this hero just got a lot of free stuff in this patch, and that just makes the hero way better. I think it was already an okay support last patch, and getting all these free things just makes it overwhelmingly the best support when a bunch of the other good supports got nerfed. And so that's really the long and short of the story for Jakiro. Then coming in at number 4 is another support. Jakiro is usually a 5, and Mirana at number 4 is usually a 4 position. And this hero just got a huge buff on Starstorm, now having a blind. This hero was already good at getting out of danger, trading from a distance, following up on stuns to just like lock people down and just blow them up. And you can farm creep waves with Starstorm, obviously. So it's always been a decent 4 position, but now the blind is just absurd, because you can just trade in the laning stage so much better than you even could before, which this was already a great trading hero. And now even later into the game, you're kind of a threat. Like, you can get into that becoming another core like a lot of these 4 positions do. It's just a huge buff to the hero. And the biggest thing that you can tell is when this hero has a 50% win rate or so, that means it's broken, because it's one of those heroes like a Pudge where people just pick it all the time. Like, if you don't know how to play forward position, people just pick Mirana, or it's just one of these very popular picks because of what it does, especially in pubs, because the Moonlight Shadow is so good to just give everybody invis. There are just things about the hero that make it fun to play, and also a very popular pub hero, and that usually decreases the win rate of those types of heroes just overall, because people play it that don't really know what they're doing. So then when this hero's win rate gets up to 50 or more percent, you just know it's absolutely broken. That's kind of the situation that we're in right now. Then at number 3, we have Lifestealer, and this hero was already an okay carry last patch. It wasn't like amazing or anything, but then all of the good carries like Spectre and Bloodseeker, they all got nerfed. And then Lifestealer got decent buffs with the Flesh Feast facet. Now, Open Wounds resets a cooldown if a hero dies under its effect, and Feast just gives you more HP when you kill heroes. That's all great stuff. It was kind of nerfed in the sense that Infest is no longer that great in terms of, you know, infesting ancient creeps, but that wasn't a huge part of the hero anyway. Like, it was a nice thing, and that's fine, but it disappearing doesn't really affect what the hero does overall. Like, it's not a big deal. So, Lifestealer, definitely a great hero right now. One of the best carries, win rate and pick rate through the roof. So that is probably going to be the best carry of the patch unless a big nerf happens, because in the next 2 heroes, they might get nerfs in the next small patch that might come out this week, honestly. Then at number 2 is a surprising one for me, and that is Tiny. So this hero was heavily nerfed, at least the crash landing facet for the toss damage was heavily nerfed, and that is really the main build for the mid or 4 position Tiny. So that is kind of gone, just like I think everyone would have predicted when they saw the nerfs there. But the buff that it did get, which was to the other facet, which is Insurmountable, which is slow resistance reduces the impact of attack speed slows, that was kind of just enough to put Tiny into the carry meta. And obviously, just like I said with Lifestealer, a lot of the other carries were nerfed, so anything that buffs a carry is kind of going to put it into the meta now. And I'm just surprised that that was enough for Tiny, because, you know, people have been playing Tiny carry over the last few years here and there, but every time they play it, it seems to get nerfed. So I thought it was gone for good, but I guess this is enough to actually put it back into the carry role. We'll see if it gets nerfed again, because for some reason it seems like they don't like Tiny carry. Like, every time it's good, they almost immediately nerf it. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Tiny's just really good. Kind of does the same thing it's always done whenever it plays carry, is you just get your shard, you get that tree, you cleave stuff down, you do like insane damage to towers, you just like 3-shot them, you blow people up if you're ahead and you know, have a lot of farm. And that's the same thing Tiny's doing now. It's just really good that whenever you get an attack speed slow put on you, if you have S and Y and some of this other stuff, you just don't really attack slower or nearly as slow as you used to, which attack speed is so important on carry Tiny. It's like the main thing that kind of limits his strength, is how fast can he actually attack. So that's why I think this is such a big buff to Tiny carry, and that's why it's such a good carry right now. Then coming in at number 1, the biggest winner of this patch, everyone probably already knows this, and that is Dragon Knight. This hero's being played in like every single role. It's just completely OP, and really there's nothing super crazy about it. It just does way more damage than it should. So basically, in the last patch, it was played as a carry because it had cleave damage, and it could just get this like free Battle Fury, kind of like a Sven, and you could just farm super quickly, and that was what made the hero good. And they changed that. They took that away. They put the cleave only on the dragon, so they're like, okay, you can't just farm the jungle, you know, with your passive. But then they gave the passive this magic damage, and it was kind of hard to see just like by reading the patch whether or not that would be good, but it turns out it was completely broken. And I heard something that it was actually glitched, like it was doing double damage or something like that, but regardless, it shot up to like 75% win rate or something crazy. Now it's in the 60s. Like, that's just absurd. And the problem is, like, it actually still has a pretty good buff in the sense that it actually has an AoE stun now on his stun, but that's not even the thing that makes the hero that great. I mean, it is good, don't get me wrong, but it's really just that you get, you know, 3 or 4 items, it's 25, 30 minutes, and you just do way too much damage. You do more damage than any other hero in the game just by running in and right-clicking people, and that's just like, that's why it's so broken. That's why it's 70-some% win rate. You never see that, but it's just because the numbers are so absurd on the hero that there's really nothing you can do. Like, when this hero gets items, you just die, and that's pretty much it. And that's Dragon Knight. It's certainly going to get nerfed like ASAP, immediately, as soon as they come out with a small patch. So just get your wins in now with Dragon Knight, and then it'll get nerfed, and we'll see if it's even in the meta after the next few weeks. So those are my top 5 winners and losers of patch 7.38. We'll see when the next patch comes out. It'll probably come out soon. I think it might come out even in the next day or so, but probably in the next week or so, because some of these things like Dragon Knight are so broken that it definitely needs nerfed, at least a little bit. Maybe even a small patch with, like, you know, a handful of nerfs to some of these big heroes or whatever. I think that's coming relatively soon, so we'll see what happens in the next few days or in the next weeks. So that is the video, guys. Let me know if you liked it. Like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.